and welcome to Imagination. My name's Susanna Westwood. This is our 4th online workshop, which I'm so excited about today. And we're at Warsaw Studio School again, and the team have been fantastic once again, and we hope that you have an amazing session. Just to remind you guys that this is the time where you can actually get to work on your art, to work on and take some time to actually reflect on what it is that you want for your career. I am so excited for today's because honestly, this subject that we're going to talk about today is going to be life-changing for everybody. You know, getting your finances right, getting things sort of working together as not only your art form, but getting your finances in gear. Oh my gosh, this can transfer everything. It has personally for me, so I'm really excited. Guys, if you have any questions, because I know this is key for everybody, if you have any questions that you want to ask me today or our guest in a short while, please tweet us. That is at Imagination, I should know this, or you can Facebook us at, which is www.facebook.com/Imagination. So hopefully, if you have any questions, please feel free. You can tweet us in. We will answer them. I will try, anyways, as quickly as we can at the end of the session. So I'm so excited about today. I'm going to get to interview an amazing woman, great friend of mine now. This is Claire.
Hello.
Marshall. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm very excited to be here.
I know, I'm very excited. You should have seen her before the session because it was very funny. We were having quite a jovial time, not at all serious, and now we're going to have a great serious talk.
Yeah, now we're trying to keep a straight face, which maybe that won't happen for the whole of the show, but hey, you're going to get some great information, and having fun whilst doing it is always the best way.
I love it. I love it. So before we get straight into the whole session, can you tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, you know, what your background is? And
okay, so it sounds a bit weird saying, hi, I'm Claire Turner-Marshall, because you know that.
I know, but go on.
Hi everybody, I'm Claire Turner-Marshall, and I am a lady with many hats, really, as you know. So I am a psychological coach, I'm a business development specialist. Basically, I work with amazing people like Susanna to help them to be everything that they can. And how did I get to where I am today? Well, through kind of making a lot of mistakes in my life and realizing that, you know, I needed to make those mistakes to get to where I am, and have loved every single minute of it. So, you know, there's challenges in life, isn't there, as we all know, but it's what we do with them and how we change things. And, you know, I had to transform who I was, because kind of woke up one day sort of, oh gosh, about 10 odd years ago now, and really didn't like the person that was looking back at me in the mirror. So it was time for me to do something different, and that was when I really got into the coaching world that I'm in today, and started to really transform things, and love it.
That's so good. That's so good. And so your background before that has been in the financial area. This is kind of one of your areas, I would say, one of your skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, I mean, you have many, and you will probably be back on time and time again talking to us about other different things. But right now, so could you tell us a bit about your experience in the financial, sort of in a nutshell, sort of the things that you've done, and then we'll go into what we're really talking about today.
Okay, so the thing that I want to say to start off with is that I get where all of you that are watching, all of you creatives that are watching, I get where you're coming from, because I am a creative at heart, and you know that. I'm kind of one of those people that's quite unique in that I've got a business side to my brain as well as the creative side. But I totally understand how challenging it can be when you're creative. And you know, I came into the world of financial services as like a green 22-year-old that knew nothing about the world, and sort of sat there having not long bought my first house and started training as an advisor, thinking, oh my goodness, I know nothing. How on earth have I bought a house when I've got such little knowledge? And to be fair, I'd done quite well because my parents ran their own business. So from literally my first memories, I lived in a family business, so I understood what it was like. But then, really honestly, how did I end up in finance? Well, I bought a house and I was kind of like, oh, maybe it's time I grew up and I was responsible. So working in a bank was responsible, you know, I was kind of a real wild child.
I will be responsible.
I will be responsible, and I will work in a bank. So it's like, okay, that sounds like a proper job. You know, up until then I'd kind of sold cars, I'd done various different things, and I'd enjoyed it and I'd had fun, but I was like, right, now it's about getting a career. I need a career, so I'll go and work in a bank. Yeah, within a couple of months of working there, I kind of realised that I didn't really fit in the corporate world. But I got training from one of the biggest financial institutions on the planet. They spent
awesome.
a lot of money training me, which I'm still very grateful to them for, because
Me
it was
too.
amazing. Yeah, we love one of the big banks that has got 4 letters, is what they're called.
I love it.
But
New
yeah,
advertising.
kind of all joking aside,
Yeah.
it taught me how much I didn't know. But also one of the things that was really great about it was I've always been somebody that's about things being simple. You know, we don't have to overcomplicate things. And so I think my champion skill more than anything is about really explaining things in simple terms. I use a lot of analogies, as you know, when I describe things, because that's what people get and that's what makes sense. And I think the key thing about finance is never let anybody think that you know, make you feel like you're stupid, because that is just wrong. You know, the end of the day, you only know what you've been taught. And I'll ask this question until we do something about it, but what financial education did you get at school, Susanna? And I'm not talking maths. You know, that's not finance, it's numeracy, and it's, you know, that useful thing Pythagoras that we use so much
Every
in
day.
life.
Every
Sorry
day.
guys, do get a bit sarcastic about this, because it kind of, it's, you know, we don't teach people about the one thing which affects every single area of their life. And the amount of people that I've had sit in front of me where I've watched the penny drop because they finally got it, because somebody explained it to them in a way that they understood, but also made them realise that they weren't stupid. You know, people don't ask questions because we don't want to appear that we're stupid. We don't want to do that. We want to make out as though we know. Well, you only know when somebody's taught you.
Totally
So-
agree. This is awesome. And like, just thinking, obviously we'll go on to sort of more of the finances and why we're talking about that. And really, you know, guys, talking more so to you, I think as creatives, I don't know about you, but personally for me, in my own experience, I panicked when it came to finances. And Claire, you'll know this, like when I first sat down with Claire, I was in a really bad financial state. I'm really frustrated that I couldn't record my album, I couldn't get any marketing done, I couldn't do anything, and everything costs. It really does my head in. Obviously, you can pull favours and you can do so many things as, you know, working together within the creative sort of sector, but there is a point where you go, oh my goodness, I just need a breakthrough. Like if I just had that pot of cash, or if I could just get that funding, or blah, 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 blah. And it's overcoming that frustration. And I know when we first sat down, this was my situation with you, and obviously I had a business idea as well, but even just as an artist, looking and going, I'm so frustrated with my financial state, how do I change this? And you were, I have to say, not just to blow your trumpet, but you were amazing at kind of giving some practical steps. So could you just kind of highlight, you know, really relating it to artists and non-artists, because I know we've opened this up to other people, because once we say, finance affects every one of us. And, you know, and it's so important, and it's life-changing when you can get this stuff right, and that's the thing. I know it has been for me, and you've watched my process, and you've watched my mentality change, and the penny drop, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, could you just explain a bit about it?
I think the first thing is everybody's got what I call a money story. So our money story is the blueprint of our life where finances are concerned. Now, just a quick lesson in psychology so this all makes sense, and we'll do a quick one. So basically, for the first, dependent on where you read, 5 to 7 years of our life, our brain doesn't have a conscious function. It only has a subconscious function. Now, the easiest way to kind of get you to relate to that is if you asked a 5-year-old child if they'd done something, generally, they might attempt to lie to you. If you say, you know, did you just write that on the wall? They might initially go, no. And then you go, did you? And they go, yeah. Now, the reason they do that is because they don't know how to tell a lie. The brain has not yet developed how I tell a lie. So they only know how to be brutally honest. And the reason for that is everything they're taking in on a subconscious level. So 97% of the thoughts that we have every single day are subconscious thoughts, only 3% are conscious. So as you're growing up, everything around you is creating who you are. So think about it a little bit like a computer. A computer doesn't work without programs and files. And your mind basically is like your own personal little computer. And as you grow up, your own files and folders are being created. And so as you get bigger, when we make decisions about things, we go back to those files that were created to reference, well, what do we do? So like when I was a little girl, my mum used to tell me that money didn't grow on trees. Everybody's heard that one, but she'd say, oh, I'll tell you what, Claire, I'll just go out the garden and pick it up off that tree. And I'd be like, yeah, well, you know, I'm sarcastic, and money actually does grow on trees, doesn't it? Because it's wood and it's paper, and that's where we get it from.
Oh my gosh, I can see what kind of child you are right now. Your poor mum. No,
but yeah, so basically that is The blueprint is created, and that's what we work from.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't create it. You didn't create yours, I didn't create mine. It was created by the people around us, by our role models. So then when we get older, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, so what is my blueprint? Do I even know? And when I started doing work on myself, for me, it was really interesting because one of the things that came up for me is, as I said, my mum and dad ran their own business. So I got this whole subconscious belief going on that if I had money, then it meant that people that were important were taken away from me. Now, how was I ever going to come to that realisation without doing some digging? I wasn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no shame in actually going back and looking at who you are because very few people do it. So if you decide to do it, you're one of the few people that actually goes out and says, right, I want to change this. But first, to change it, I've got to discover why I was like it.
Yeah.
So first thing we do is say, right, okay, let's understand what your money story is. Because it could be that, you know, mom didn't work, dad works, dad has the money. So it could be that your program running is women don't have money, only men do. Or it could be completely the opposite. It's really interesting once we start delving. So step one is, let's take some time to go back and discover who you are. And that's the first critical thing, because what that does is it helps us to create the foundation. Now, as we know with anything, if we haven't got a good solid foundation, there's no point building anything on it, because all that's going to happen is the cracks are going to appear and then the damage is caused.
Totally.
So first of all, it's like, who are you? What is the blueprint that you're working from? As soon as we discover that, as you know yourself, all of a sudden then, lots of things start to kind of go, oh, that makes sense now. I understand why this is. So what we can then do is we can then bring it into reality and say, right, now we can start looking at what we need to change. Now, there are various different techniques we can use to do this. You know, hypnosis is great when it comes to reprogramming. There's some NLP, neuro-linguistic programming techniques that we can use that basically will literally rewire the brain, that will kind of put it in a new brainwave and fix it into there. So it's like, right, that's done now. I'm not going to go back to that old pattern. And again, once you know it's there, you're consciously aware of it.
So that awareness is kind of key.
Oh, the
really.
awareness is absolutely critical, and it's about taking the responsibility for that as well, and kind of saying, look, I've realised that this is who I am. Now I've got a choice. I can either do something about it and I can change it, or not.
Yeah.
And it really is that simple. You know, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy if you decide to do something about it, because it isn't easy, you know, and it's also not going to happen overnight. You know, there's no such thing, in my opinion, as an overnight millionaire, because again, when that does happen, the programming's not right. So you look at anybody that's done that, they've all come back down there before they've gone back up again. So, you know, I always kind of maintain that the tortoise really does beat the hare, and there's nothing wrong with that. We get so bombarded by, you know, stories in the press, and people did this and they did that. And it's actually not about anybody else. It's about you, and it's about your journey and the journey that you go on, because that is the power of it, isn't it? That's the power. So understand why. Then once we understand why, we can start looking at some simple things like, you know, just checking your account every day, starting to get conscious of your spending.
I'm laughing. Totally sorry for interrupting, but I'm laughing because this was me, wasn't it? Like, I remember going in with our first meeting. No, it was the first couple of meetings, wasn't it? And I had the same thing. I had the awareness. I had this revelation of, you know, what was my money blueprint, in the sense of, you know, what did I believe? And I had sheer palpitations and panic attacks with my accounts. And it's so funny, but because I'd lived my life in some ways like this artist, just trying to get by week to week, gig to gig, you know, and yes, I've toured and yes, I've done stuff, but there was still this mentality inside my head of like, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I'm never gonna have enough. But that was my blueprint for my family, and that's a whole nother story, you know? And so it was really interesting. But when I started to do the task that you did, and it was really good having you around, because you would check in and go, have you checked your accounts? Have you done this? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Practical things like that actually started to make me feel like just okay. And it was amazing the control that you feel
Yeah.
over it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Because the thing is a lot of the time we're scared of something that we don't even know. You know, it's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of telling yourself that it's really bad. And again, you got that whole program running. Oh, this is terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. Did you even check? Do you know if it's terrible? No. But you know, and this is again the subconscious mind kind of taking over and putting that fear in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, tell it, thank you so much for your opinion.
Yeah.
We're choosing not to listen to you today, and you can now be quiet. But kind of all joking aside, it's the simple things to become conscious of, isn't it? So we did the exercise around the little book. So everybody get a little book, you know, tiny little notebook in your pocket for the next 30 days. Write down every single penny that you spend, because it is amazing how much Costa and Starbucks cost when you start adding them up.
It's so
You know, and nobody's saying that you can't have. I'm not saying you can't have your Costa and Starbucks. Of course you can. Just be conscious of it. You know, if we spend like a £5 a day on nothing of any consequence, you know, that's like £1,200 a year. And where you're sitting there sort of saying to me, I don't have the money to do the things that I want to do, getting conscious of those little amounts every day that you don't think are big purchases, really, you know, aren't big purchases, but when you accumulate them together, you know, cheeky little OK magazine, a couple of other little things, a little bit of cheeky lunch, all of it starts to add up. And like I say, it's not a problem, but if you're sitting here whinging to me that I don't have any money, well then we need to look at what money you do have and where it's going.
Where it's going, totally.
So it's, you know, it's important to get there and to get clarity, because also then you're kind of thinking, oh, am I going to spend this? And you'll start questioning, do you really need it? Well, you know, we don't always need everything that we spend money on, but again, what you've got to look at is what are your spending habits? And by having the little book and writing it down, you really get to own what your own personal money patterns and habits are. Then when you know them, we can start to do something about it.
That's so key. I'm loving this, because it's been a while since we've gone over it, but it's actually really good again. Oh yeah, maybe I should do that again.
Just revisiting that, yeah.
Thank you, it's funny. That's awesome, that's really cool. So practically, I know there's other steps that people can do, but how I know you gave me some skills and tasks to do, but how do people define what their money blueprint is? Because obviously that determines everything. That, like in some ways, what your belief systems and what you think about something and what you perceive, whether it's anything, whether it's to do with money, whatever it is, it doesn't really, like, it doesn't matter what it is. But how do you find that out? How do you, like, I know for me, I'm naturally, I do a bit of soul searching. I will naturally go, well, why do I do that? And I question. But is there anything practical that people can do to actually find that out that they can practically do at home? So
well, I mean, kind of, you know, it's very much down to, you know, how important is this to you to do something about it? And, you know, are you in a position to invest in yourself? Are you prepared to invest in yourself? Because, you know, I could say quite happily, yeah, I can do this with you, I can work with you, and I can help you solve it. But obviously, you know, you've got to be financially in a situation to do that. Now, you know, if you're not in that place, check out my YouTube channel. There's loads of free resource on there,
so
as
much
you
stuff on
know,
there,
loads
guys,
of free videos. But the first thing is, do one little thing that I always encourage people to do that a lot of people don't, and that is mark some nothing time in your diary. Now, what nothing time is it's time to allow the mind to think. So, you know, ask yourself the question, say to, you know, mark that time to do nothing. And what I mean by nothing is allowing a bit of space and allowing some time for who you really are to come through. So just ask yourself the question, what am I really like with money? And then take yourself back to your earliest memory and just start jotting some things down. Because as you do this, you will start to see a pattern emerge. Now, you could kind of question there straight away, like, you know, I've had so many people say to me so many times, well, you know, how come it is that my sister's brilliant with money and I'm absolutely terrible? My sister was a saint with money. Why was I terrible? To be perfectly honest, because I didn't want to be like her. And not that there's anything wrong with her, I love her dearly, but my entire life I got compared to my sister in my childhood. You know, why aren't you as good as your sister? Why aren't you studious and quite like your sister? Well, because I'm me, for a start, which is what I used to say, and they were kind of like, oh, okay then. I've been like this all my life.
I love it. I love this.
But secondly... This
is why we get on.
It's kind of crazy. We're doing quite well so far, aren't we? But, you know, secondly, it was a rebellion thing for me.
Yeah.
So I would spend everything just because then it was one way I couldn't be compared against Zoe.
Yeah.
Now, again, where did that come from? It was something subconsciously going on that, you know, 13, 14, I had no idea about. I didn't even understand, you know, how the mind worked at that age. So it's about having that time to say, who am I? Now, you know what, guys? Some of this is probably going to be painful, but you haven't got to tell anybody else unless you absolutely want to. But the more honest that you can get about this and the more that you can take responsibility, the more chance you've got of changing it. Now, you know, again, don't beat yourself up too much because we know that you didn't create this, the people around you did. But once you've taken that step, you know, if you still like it in 2 years' time, then I am going to beat you up because you've had some time to do something about it now. You've chosen not to.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's, you know, it's about having that time to allow some quiet in the mind, just clear it out and ask yourself the question, you know, who am I with money? And then once you've done that, you can then start to see, like I say, if you're really honest, and you've got to be honest, because if you're not, it won't make any sense. But if you are, you'll see some patterns emerging in who you are, how you do things. And then when you start to think about your role models, parents, guardians, grandparents, you will start to see behaviour patterns.
Yeah.
So, for example, my mum was the eldest of 8 children. They had a very, very poor upbringing. There really was very little money to do anything. My mum still to this day, you know, extremely wealthy lady, but lives in a mindset of, I will go and buy a bargain. You know, this is the demon bargain hunter we're talking about here. If anybody wants to know about bargains, you need to speak to my mum, Susan Turner. She is just a champion at it. But why is that? Because even though, you know, now she doesn't have to concern herself about that, she is programmed to look for the best deal.
Yeah.
So, you know, look at your parents, look at your grandparents, look at your role models. What are they doing? Because what they're doing 99% of the time is pretty much what you're doing as well.
Totally.
So look around you as well. You know, take that time to look at your influences. And, you know, we'll get this one in quick while we're on this. You are the average of the 8 people that you spend the most time with. So financially, mentally, in your work, absolutely everything about you. Yeah. Socially, you are the average of the 8 people that you spend the most time with. So if you're not happy about things that happen in your life at the moment, maybe you need to take a look at who you're associating yourself with as well, because they are having a major influence on you and your finances.
Yeah, it's so true. Like on everything really, you can have that element of, you know, the surroundings, and it's just having those people that are going to encourage you and inspire you to keep going. And you know, I know that's transformed stuff for me, but I mean that is so key. And you know, in relating this to artists and creative people, it's like I think sometimes our mentality, and obviously I'm not speaking for everybody because everybody's different, but it can be you live from one gig to the next. You live in that mentality of just, oh yeah, it's okay. And then you get frustrated with the fact that your career's not going anywhere and you've got no income to take that next step or record that next album or buy the new equipment that you need for your artist or anything like that. And then also it's developing, even having a budget so that you don't have to rely on agents or managers or a marketing campaign, that you have the money to have that budget. Yeah. And it's like, actually, what could you do, like as an artist, if you had all that given to you? Not saying that you're given to you, but you could make that, and then suddenly create that resource was available. You want. Yeah. It's like mind-blowing. So it's amazing how just this simple step of this can actually transform. And just kind of talking a bit about my situation, and obviously we'll go into more details of other things that we could learn, but you know, within a year of working with you and applying this stuff, I mean, we were talking about the other day, like absolutely transformed, like let alone the business that I've set up, but just my mindset. I don't fear it anymore. Like, and if I do feel it, I know what to feel. Any fear, I know what to do. Like, just tools that I could actually apply and go, oh my goodness. And for the first time, I look and go, I can create the career I want rather than just settling for second best, so to speak. Yeah. And it's suddenly, because my head's changed, then my actions have changed, and my actions have changed, and therefore I'm producing something of worth.
Absolutely.
And it is. It's getting the head right, isn't it? First.
I'm like a proud mom.
Well, you should be, because you did a good job. Sorry.
But the thing is, you know, we laugh and joke about it, but at the end of the day, you took action. You know, you came and listened to me. You took the hardest step, which was admitting you needed some help, and then you kind of said, right, okay, I need some help, and what am I going to do next? And then we went through it step by step. You know, I got you back. I was holding your hand. You knew that I was there
On the
for
dark
you.
days.
Yeah. But you know what? We all have dark days, you know,
Yeah.
and that's where, like I say, you know, I love working with creatives and I love working with people like yourself, because I get you, because in here, that's who I am, and you know that. You know, I'm a huge creative. I, you know, love everything to do with creativity, singing, dancing, acting, you know, putting it on the wall, art, you name it, love it all, the whole thing. And it's, you know, it's extremely challenging, because again, when you're a creative, it's kind of practical and it's boring, and it's like, oh, I don't want to look at that. But you know, this kind of probably will lead us on to the next thing, that the reason why it's important for you to look at it is, you know, let's look at how many pop stars, for example, have gone bankrupt over the last few years.
Yes, I'm excited about this. Go on.
So, you know, I was actually reading, I don't know how true this is, because, you know, you kind of have to take everything that you read with a pinch of salt to a certain degree, because the press will always over-egg it. But, you know, I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago where I think it was in 2009, Rihanna was virtually bankrupt. Now, she's currently suing her accountant, or so the paper said. She's currently suing her accountant because of the bad advice that she was given. Now, you know, I know as a creative, this isn't the sort of thing that kind of really inspires you. But let's put it on a whole nother level. Let's say that you're a dancer and you've got a serious problem with your ankle, and you're going to have surgery. You want to know the ins and outs of what that surgeon is going to do to you, because you know that this could affect the rest of your career. So let's bring that back to finances. Why don't you want to know the ins and outs of what it's going to do to you, because is this not going to affect your career as well?
Hugely.
You know, let's be really practical about this. You can bury your head in the sand and say, I'll leave it to other people. And that ultimately always comes back to, I do that because I don't want to appear stupid, so I won't ask the question, because by not asking the question, I'm not going to appear stupid. Well, again, let's get this straight now. You don't ask the question, you are stupid. Because, you know, look at, is it Kean Egan from Westlife? You know, he went bankrupt last year for like £17 million.
It's such a shame when they've worked
so
hard at what they've done.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? To a certain degree, he went a little bit too much risk in one area. You know, they jumped on the back of the property boom. I think it was him and his brother-in-law or his brother. Got a little bit too engrossed in one area, in my opinion, to be perfectly honest. But again, Westlife were one of the most successful bands on the planet, were they not? Now, artists don't always earn as much money as you think they do, and I think that's the key thing to start off with. But what happened there? You know, it's about kind of looking at the longevity of your career, because, for example, as a dancer, like with professional sports people, you've got a window in your career. You know, you're not going to be having your leg up here somewhere in the same way when you're 60 as you are right now. Yeah, okay, you know, I know that you can maintain a huge amount, but you do get older. So what you've got to do is you've got to think about the future. You've also got to think about the downtimes, because there's going to be occasions where there isn't any work, and like you say, you know, not living from gig to gig, but actually looking at the bigger picture and saying, right, okay, what do I need my finances to do for me? Not what do I need to do for them. It's getting them working to your advantage. You set the agenda, and then you work out how you're going to create that. Don't do it the other way around. Don't have it set for you when you can be in control. Now, as creatives, again, you get a bit scared of this, because you're kind of like, yeah, but I don't know what to do. Well, you know, I understand that. There's help around you. What you've got to think about is the help and support that you can get is a far lesser investment than what it's going to cost you in the long run if you don't do something about it. You know, it's money kind of, in a lot of ways, does really strange things to people. You know, they can be mega positive about it, but they can also become very big green-eyed monsters all of a sudden when there's a lot more for other people and not so much for them. So it's about, you know, making sure that you've got a trusted, recommended team around you, because that is absolutely key. You know, you do need advisors, but, you know, get a good lawyer. Do you always need an agent?
Yeah.
Dependent on the type of work you're in, not necessarily. It could be that you just need a really good lawyer that can write you a really good contract.
Yeah.
Because unless the agent's actually going out there and physically getting work for you, the only other bit that they do is give you a legal contract to say that they're going to do a certain amount. They usually take a rather large percentage for that, whereas if you've got a good lawyer, they do exactly the same job for probably not even
less,
an eighth of the
because you
fee.
just pay a fee.
Because you pay a one-off fee, that's it, you pay them to do a job. So, you know, you've got to look at who are the key people that you need around you and why do you need them.
I think this is really important, because I think we've, in the past especially, music industry, dance industry, all of us, like, we use agents, we use managers, and I'm not saying that there isn't a place, but what I'm trying to say is there's actually an alternative approach. Like, actually, do we need major labels? This is very risky saying all this stuff, but there are, just to highlight, there's alternatives out there, there's alternatives, and actually when you have the finances and everything like that in place, you can pay people to run your marketing campaign. You can pay people to, you know, go out and get you extra gigs. You can, rather than actually giving away all your money as in on a percentage, or having people take cuts. Because even the other day I was talking to someone and they were like, it's a nightmare. They were trying to deal with one artist, a quite highly established artist, and just to get one aspect of like their merchandise sorted, they had to speak to like 5 different people because everybody got a cut of the pie. And I'm like, well, if there's over 5 people getting a cut of that pie, there's not going to be much left for the artist. What's going on here? And I'm realising actually this is key, because it's not just about creating a short-lived career. This is about creating a longevity career, sustainable, but also having the life and the career that you want. And you know, that's one thing you've got me to do, is actually, when you say about like not letting the money dictate you, but you setting the goal and the agenda, it's like actually having your goal set. And we've talked about this for weeks and weeks with everybody, but having that written down, even financially. Like, I remember when I wrote mine and I sent you my, what we call my utopia, I think you were there for days reading it through, because it was like, well, these are my dreams. This is what I really want. This is the ideal life that I really want. This is the money that I want to earn. And not in a bad kind of, I want to get rich kind of way, but in a, that means I'm going to get to do one more. I'm going to be able to give out more. I can, you know, travel. I can do everything with my music. I can create the career that I want, rather than letting people dictate. And it's absolutely key, isn't it, Claire? Like,
it is, because the thing is as well, you know, you just alluded to something there, which again, which is really important, and that is that, why is money bad?
Yeah.
You know, somebody needs to tell me why it's bad. You know, there's some really amazing things that you can do when you've got money. But the problem is, because so many people are, oh, well, it's all right for them. You know, I've pretty much lived my entire life in a world where people have said to me, it's all right for you. Because my parents, you know, got off their butts and they went out there and they worked themselves to the bone to get to where they are today. Now, you know, I was very lucky. I grew up in a very nice life. We had a beautiful big house in the middle of nowhere. We had the new cars. We had the foreign holidays. You know, and I was brought up to understand the value of that. You know, it always made me smile that at school I got called the rich kid, yet I was probably one of the only other kids in the year that had got a job. Now, I've had a job since I was 11, because we had a work ethic instilled into us that if you want something, you go out there and you work for it. Now, you know, nobody's ever handed anything to me on a silver spoon. And when I was younger, I'm not going to lie, yeah, I wanted that. But now I'm a little bit older and I'm a little bit wiser and I've had some life experience. I'm really glad that that didn't happen, because had it have done, would I be the person I am today? Totally not. And I think that that's the important thing. It's about knowing that it's the value for you and that it's something that you created. And that is far, far more empowering to you when you've done it yourself. And I think that's the key. You know, money isn't a bad thing. Money means that you get to do things that ordinarily you wouldn't be able to do. You know, I like having money because it means that I get to do mentoring work. I get to work, and you know, I'm a Rotarian, as you know, and I'm big into helping Rotary International and big into doing that work. Now, why do I love it so much? Well, because it's been in my life for pretty much most of it. But to see the faces of the people that we help and support, like that just that is my why. That is why I do what I do, because it's about helping those people that ordinarily you wouldn't be able to do. Now, why can I do that? I can do it because I've set my finances up, so I've got that time that allows me to dedicate in that way. So again, think about the bigger picture. You know, while we're on that, let's talk about it. You know, it's our why. Why is what you want to do important to you? Why do you want to get it out there in the world? You know, my why is really simple. If one more person goes to bed tonight and smiles and something changes in their life because of something that I did, then I'm done. That's me. That's is awesome. Why I do what I do. And it, you know, and I think that that's what you've got to get across. You know, when you're an artist, why is it that you're doing what you do? You know, I spent most of my childhood singing, dancing, acting, you know, loved it all. There is nothing quite like the feeling when you are standing on stage, or when you've done a performance, or when, you know, you've created a piece of art and somebody is like, oh my God, that was amazing. Yeah. And you know, when the hairs go up on the back of your neck, and you know, you can feel it, and you can feel that energy, that amazing energy that comes from, you know, the praise that is being just showered on you. And I can see it in your face. I'm making you go now.
I'm on the journey. I'm on the journey.
But there's nothing quite like that. And being able to do that, and knowing that the reason that you want to get up on this stage and like sing your heart out is because you want to totally transform how those people out there are feeling. That's a great why.
It would motivate you beyond belief. Yeah, totally.
And so you've got to be motivated as to the reason why you're doing this. Now, if you're doing it for the reasons that are important to you, and for reasons, you know, I'm a bit of a humanitarian, and for reasons that are good for people on the planet, that's awesome. You know, if you just want to make loads of money and you want to, you know, go off and just spend it and do whatever, again, kind of, that's cool as well, you know.
It's your reason.
Yeah,
it's fine.
You know, we're all, every single day we walk around in the most amazing computer that was ever created, us. You know, we look at all the years of science and evolution and everything that's happened, and yet we still haven't mastered perfectly cloning human beings, have we? Well, there's a reason for that, because we're all one-off and unique, and in the words of Marie Forleo, who we both love,
I love her.
You know, the world has something that only you can give.
It's so true.
So, you know, don't ever be scared of that. And again, it kind of brings us back to, don't be scared of being individual and being authentic and being you. People, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like what it is that you had to say. Now, again, you know, in the world of celebrity, you have to be careful, because the press are very controversial and they will pull things out of all proportion. And here's a perfect example. You know, I have to, you know that I'm a bit of a 50 Shades fan, so I'm going to use this as an example because I just thought it was hilarious. But, you know, there was something in the papers that, you know, the E.L. James, the author and the director of the 50 Shades film, were having arguments over something, and it was in loads of papers. Oh, you know, this is bad, that's bad. And E.L. James posts a picture on Twitter, on her Facebook page, of her and the director doing this together, like basically totally ripping the media to pieces and proving that it's not true. So, you know, you have got to be careful, but let's face it, that's one of the great things about social media now. You can just get out there and say it yourself. And nobody can kind of say, oh, well, you know, because, you know, we all know who the real people are on the social medias. So it's be authentic, but don't be scared to say, I love money. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have nice things in your life. Don't apologise for it.
Totally agree. And I think as artists, some of us, when we're first starting out, we have that mentality of like, oh, you know, I'm just an artist, or I can't really earn enough. And it's like, well, actually, why can't we be and develop our own financial career as well as our artistic career just as strong, so they can run parallel? And, you know, I was talking, I think it was, Coventry University last week, and we were talking about marketing and all that kind of stuff, and they were like saying, we really struggle with this, and I was like, I totally understand, because you don't want to feel like you're just selling yourself and you're just bombarding people, but actually it's about people, when you are selling stuff and you are making money from your art, people want to invest in you, they want to invest what you're creating, and like you were saying, there's only you that can create that unique element of you, and people will buy into that if you're authentic to who you are, and that's the point. And being able to generate the income, and I mean, not just to pipe on about imagination, but that's the whole point of this, that they can, you know, put the products on, sell them directly to the customer. Nobody else is in the way interfering with how it should look or how it should be sold or It's direct, and that's the point, isn't it? It's like that we can generate that income, even if it's incremental. It just starts to make that difference that we need.
Well, it doesn't, and you know what I love about imagination, and you know when kind of we started, and then I remember you coming to me and going,
Oh my goodness,
yeah,
this was a funny meeting.
Yeah, and I remember kind of being as excited as you about the whole thing, because well, you know, that's how I get about anybody that I work with. I just get uber excited about what they're doing, because you know I've got your back. I'm here for you. I'm holding your hand. You know, I'm your wingman. I'm there next to you, supporting you along the way. And I remember kind of sitting there thinking, I just love this. And I loved it because imagination's not just about promoting the artists out there, but it's this whole bit that we're doing here.
Yeah.
It's about giving them the support that they really need. You know, and it's not just about the money, it's about all the other things that you've talked about, you know, the things that you've talked about with Marcellus and with Paul, and, you know, it's bringing all of those things together, and that is what's so powerful about it. Is it's like, you haven't got to do this on your own. We're here to support you, and we're here to help you with all the elements that you just need to ask somebody a question about. And that's what makes it so unique and so wonderful. Because nobody is, you know, I mean, I love it.
I've got to be passionate about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can share, can't we, about the moment when, you know, the funding had come through, and we had the, we'll count to 3, no, sod 3, let's just scream.
I know.
On the phone.
It's too crazy. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that, like, I don't probably talk about it a lot in regards to we got investment and things like that for imagination, but I don't see why we shouldn't. But it was a long process, and just to kind of give everybody an idea, you know, when you have an idea, whether it's about your music or creative, whatever it is that your idea is, you know, when you start, like for me, I had to write the vision down. I had to, oh man, the business plan nearly killed me.
The mother of all
business
it
was.
plans.
But I wrote it down, and then I let it go. And it's amazing how I was like, right, okay, let's just hope this all works out and something will come through. And when it did, obviously, I know we had this big reaction and screams and stuff like that, but it's that kind of mentality that something shifted for me. And I think, but I had to, back in the November, so practically, I had the idea in November in 2012, started to write the business plan in December, January, February, March, because it took me forever, then gave it to you to give to investors and people. I mean, thankfully, I'd put people around me, which we were talking about last week, you know, having a team around you to help with the things you're not good at. Yeah. It sounds great. Like, I am not amazing at finances, but I've got a hell of a lot better, you know, because I've got a team around me that help me. But, you know, and having that mentality of like, actually, this is achievable, that I don't have to live with what I think an artist should be, you know, and I'm talking across the board here, a musician, a dancer, an artist, whatever, your film director, you know, creating films, oh my gosh, it's the most expensive thing as well. Like, I feel for directors, they, you know, they have to pitch their films every time and really go for funding, and you know, we all do, we're all in that same boat. But it's actually realizing once you get your head right and something shifts in your belief system that you go, I can do this, then you put the actions in place, then suddenly something materializes. You're like, oh my goodness, like this can actually happen. And within a year, and so hands up, like guys, like within a year, everything changed. Like, this is why we sat here today, because I had the idea, I put it down on paper, I changed my mentality, we put things in action. And it doesn't mean that we haven't worked hard to make it happen, but applying it to everything that you do. So this can either be, whether it's imagination, whether it's your art, whatever it is, whether it's nothing to do with artistic stuff at all, you know, having that mentality of like, these are the steps, and do it and go for it.
And it is, and it's you know, it's the belief about you and what you can do. You know, think about the story of Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. You know, Sylvester Stallone got the idea for the movie Rocky. You know, like they say, the bit of a funny talking American guy, you know, that's a terrible accent there.
Yeah, but it's good.
But but you know, he wasn't your kind of idea of an actor. He wasn't what people expected, yet he wrote this movie script and he had this idea. And I think the story goes something like that. All he got was his dog, and you know, he'd got this script, and he went to a producer, a director, and said, you know, this is the movie that I want to produce, and I want to star in it. And they said no. Yeah. And he was kind of like, but you know, we'll buy it, but we don't want you. And he was like, no, the condition is it's either me and the script.
Yeah. This is awesome.
Or it's nothing. And, you know, and it comes back to our standards, doesn't it? What are you prepared to accept? How passionate are you about your dream? And how much are you going to stick by your guns to get it? Because too often we will weigh because we're kind of like, oh, you know, we sway over and we weigh over because we're like, oh, well, you know, I'll get there if I do this. No, don't compromise.
Yeah.
Stick with your beliefs, because Stallone, you know, sold his dog because he needed the money to, he couldn't feed the dog, and he just couldn't carry on living like that. So he sold the dog, and they offered him some money for the script, and you know, without him, and he said no. But they loved the script, so he stuck with it and said, when you accept me and the script, then we've got a deal. So he finally managed to secure that deal, and then basically went to go and buy the dog back because he wanted his dog back. You know, this was his companion.
Yeah.
And the guy that bought him off him made him pay a ridiculous amount of money. Now, we all know the rest. You know, we know the history. Rocky became one of the most, you know, amazing films of its time. It was also one of the most inspiring films of its time. I remember when I ran my first half marathon, my one and only half marathon, and I got to the point where I'd hit the wall. All you athletes out there know what I'm talking about now. I'd hit the wall, and I was heading towards the football stadium where we were finishing, and all of a sudden, the loudspeakers started to go, dun, 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 dun. Now, having ran up the Rocky steps in Philadelphia, it was like,
so
boom,
funny.
let's do it. And all of a sudden, I found this energy from somewhere, I have no idea
Thanks to
where,
Rocky.
but it was like, I can do this, and it just spurred me on. And you know, there's nothing wrong with using those stories. You know, one of the most inspirational people that I've ever seen speak was Donald Trump. Thought the guy was a complete arrogant soul until I actually saw him speak. When I saw him speak, totally changed my opinion of the guy. But he went through really difficult times. Pretty much everybody that's been successful has had money challenges at some point, has had, you know, personal challenges thrown at them, has had to learn. So you know what? You are no different, and there is nothing wrong with it. Having a nervous breakdown was one of the best things that ever happened in my life. People think I'm raving mad when I say that, but do you know what, guys? It really was, because it got me where I am today. And that's the key, you know, just go for it. Don't ever give up on your dream, and believe in you, but have the people around you that will help you to do it.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So we are going to answer some questions, some of the guys that are coming through, but on a practical level then, so obviously we're looking at getting to know your blueprint and sort of taking action on that, so there's change. But then also could you give us some top tips of like some practical stuff? What can they do? Like, I know with me, you got me to sort my bank accounts out, things like that. Just practical things that, you know, it's getting ready to actually accept that you're going to generate some cash.
You got to,
so,
you know,
so what's that, what can they do?
Yeah, so kind of the first thing is, which I've got a document I'm quite happy to send out to anybody that wants to like message in, you know, which is Money Management Made Easy. And basically it's a step-by-step document on how to manage your money. Now, money's like small children. If you don't pay it daily attention, if you don't give it boundaries, and if you don't show it respect, it will very quickly become that child in the supermarket that's having a complete paddy on the floor. Now, we've all witnessed that child in the supermarket. And, you know, and we've all been the ones going, God, I'm glad that isn't my kid.
Walk away.
And walk away. But no, the reality is that, you know, why do children behave like that? Well, it's usually because they're bored. It's usually because they don't know the boundaries, and it's usually because they're not getting any attention. And I'm not saying that you should do that in a negative way. You do it in a positive way. Money is the same. You've got to look after it. You've got to show it some respect. Because then it will show you respect, and it will look after itself. So first thing is, you know, getting your money into place, getting your account set up. You know, it never ceases to amaze me the amount of people that try and live out of one bank account. Really? Bank accounts are free, guys. They don't cost any money to have them. I've got more bank accounts than most of you have probably had hot dinners. And why do I do that? Because it's nice and easy. They're all structured everywhere. At a certain day of every month, bing, 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 all the money goes into the places that it needs to go into, and I can just log onto my internet banking and know there and then exactly where I am. you know, food nowadays, let's face it, it can get quite expensive.
Yeah.
Now, if you're living all out of one bank account and all your bills and all your expenses come out of there, how are you ever supposed to know how much you've got to feed yourself?
Yeah.
And with all the will in the world, there's very few people that will sit there and work it all out. So inevitably you overspend.
Yeah.
Why do you do this? Because there's no structure there. So
Yeah.
just get a little bit of structure into place, but then make it so it inspires you. You know, we have fun money accounts.
Oh, I love that account. Go on.
So we have an account which is basically just for fun. It's money to spend on, you know, whatever you want to do to fill yourself up and to be silly, to have fun, something to remember.
And it's a way of rewarding yourself as well when you've worked hard.
Yeah, because again, we can be really critical, and you know, especially when we work for ourselves, it's kind of like, oh well, I've got to pay everything, and you know, no, pay yourself first, even if it's only a small amount. Pay yourself something so that you feel like you're gaining something from doing all this work. Because there's nothing more demoralising than working your butt off, doing goodness knows how many hours every single day, and then getting to the end of the week and you can't even treat yourself to a cheeky bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
let's get it into perspective.
Okay. Yeah, I love
So
that.
yeah, so managing your money is really, really key. And that kind of comes then after you've worked out the money story, when you start then doing your little book for the 30 days, all of a sudden you're going to see your spending habits, and then you can then move on to the next step of, right, let's manage this.
Yeah.
Let's, you know, work it in a little bit of a better way than I'm doing at the moment. Now, even if you haven't got money going into the long-term savings account, for example, if it's there, there is an intention that you are going to put it there. You know, let's remember, guys, Rome was not built in a day. We are not expecting you to go out there, bang, all of a sudden, everything's perfect overnight. You know that didn't happen for you. It doesn't happen for anybody. It's a journey. And again, because we know that it takes 21 days to create a habit, we can start to create new habits. But you take it one step at a time.
This is really practical. And like in regards to the accounts, this is what I loved about this. It's like you have your different accounts. You've got your general, you've got your long terms, your short term saving. I have my education one. I've got my giving account, because that's really important for me to be able to give, because then I feel and then I've got my fun account. I think that's everything, isn't it?
That's it.
And that was really practical for me, because and at that point especially, I wasn't putting any money in any of them. Like it was just, they were there. But what it did is it changed my mentality to think, this is how I'm going to spread my money. And actually what happens then practically, you start to generate, and it's amazing, because like you go, oh yeah, and then more gigs came. Like for me practically, even though I was still setting up Imagination, I suddenly had way more gigs. I was doing session stuff, I was doing tours, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so it just started to happen because my head went right, because we'd worked together. I'd got the bank accounts ready. I'd practically put everything in place which you told me to do, which was very good, and it worked. So
you've got to create some space. You know, whenever we want to do something, what we've got to look at is, and this is kind of going a bit spiritual now, and it depends if you think like this. You know, I'm a very spiritual person. You know, I believe that I put messages out to the universe, and the universe gives me back what I'm putting out there. So, you know, that's not for everybody, and, you know, it's what your belief systems are. But the fact of the matter is, what you've got to look at is there actually space in your life for these things to come in? Are you allowing the room? You know, because if you're constantly, you know, telling everybody that you're busy all the time, well, the chances are you're not going to have the time to do the things that you want to do. So, you know, kind of think that your thoughts can become literally things that are happening out there, and they will become things because you've got to make the space available. You know, is that financial freedom account, is it open? Okay, there might not be anything in it, but is it open?
Yeah.
Because if it's open, then it's
ready.
like,
It's
it's ready, it's waiting for the money to just start flowing over there.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's cool. That's really good. Right, we have literally got hardly any time, so I'm going to ask some questions from the guys. So we got Byron's messaged in. He's put in, what is the best thing to do financially to hold money? Which we kind of just spoke about, isn't it? It's like,
I mean, to hold money, kind of, that's a really broad question.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, I'd need to ask probably about another 20 questions, but it's very dependent on what the purpose and the destination of it is in the future.
yeah. So it's kind
That's
of like,
a bit woolly, but it's kind of, you know, it depends what you want it for. Because if you want it for long term, there's certain things we can do. If you want it for short term, then there's other things that you do.
And that's the thing, and it's like having that mentality around it of like, okay, what's my why to holding on to this money? What's, you know, why do I want to save?
Yeah.
And that's really important. Like, I know for me, my short-term savings account, for my business more so, it's like, well, my reason why is I want to record my album properly. I want to, you know, use the best musicians. That's going to cost me.
Yeah.
So I know I need to save to make sure that happens. Or I want to create that film. And so that means, one, I've got to source funding or investment, get my business ready, but also I've got to get that why behind why.
Yeah, and you've just got to put a little bit of planning into place. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, sort of an absolute cast iron, everything perfect plan.
Yeah.
But if you've got just like a simple plan and a simple process, you've got something there which is an intention. And once you've got the intention, you can then start building more on top of that.
This is cool. Okay, so the other thing, we've got a question here from Amy, who is an artist, and she says that she struggles to price her work. And how would you recommend this? Now, I think this is easier for musicians because things are quite set in regards to what you pay for a track, what you pay for an album, blah, blah, blah. But it can fluctuate. For film directors, maybe a bit different. But yeah, so how do you, as an artist or creative, how do you set how much you work? You know, how much do you charge for a gig? How much do you know, what do you do? And it's having that mentality around it.
I think, again, it's taking various different factors into consideration. So it's things like, you know, what's your experience? You know, what experience have you got? Because people will pay for experience over inexperience. You know, look at, again, what are your peers in your industry doing? I'm not saying that you've got to charge exactly the same as them, but if you've got an idea what everybody else is doing, then it gives you somewhere to start.
Yeah.
You can start looking at, you know, well, where am I in my career? What's the quality of what I do? And then bringing those factors together. So there's lots of different things that you can look at, but first and foremost really is understanding who you are, because when you get comfortable with you and understanding you, then your value will become very obvious to you. That sounds kind of a bit way out there, but you know yourself, when you take ownership of who you are and start really understanding you on a soul level, then what you're able to do is really believe in your value.
And not feel guilty for pricing it as well. Because
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but like in the past I've felt guilty, oh yeah, it's just £8 to get into a gig if you don't mind. And it's like, what? You know, that
and you just totally undervalue it and you don't even realise that you're doing it. But again, you know, this is a whole area that we haven't covered that we're not going to have chance, and I know that we've got to go quickly. So it's like language patterns, you know, think about your language that you're using, because that has a massive impact on everything. We use language because that's what people say.
Yeah.
Be conscious of it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do what everybody else does. You can be you.
I love that. That's wicked to finish on.
Yes.
I know we could talk all day, so I will stop. But yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate your input. So guys, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you've got some knowledge from it. If you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to tweet us or Facebook us, and I will be on. And I'll be able to answer some of your questions, or Claire will. I'm sure she won't mind. But yeah, we hope that you've enjoyed this. Next week, we're not going live, but what I will be doing is I'll be sending you some videos through of the last sort of 3 weeks, so that you can, if there's anything you missed, you can actually go over, do your goal setting stuff, which we talked about in the first week, and also with Marcellus. And Marcellus will be sending you as well the link to some of his stuff, so you can have loads of information. Guys, once again, thank you. We've been at Warsaw Studio School, which have been absolutely amazing, and they've been great for us today. If you haven't signed up to your imagination, just remember to get on there, put your profile on. We want to see you on there. We are about to develop the next stage where you can actually sell your products and make some money, which is why we're here. So guys, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. Take care. Bye.